Welcome back to JPIW, the Journal of Practical Intelligence and Wisdom. Most people believe success is built by moving forward, but today we're going to challenge that belief. You set a goal, you list the steps, and you march toward the finish line. But the truth is, some of the biggest failures in history didn't happen because people lacked ambition. They happened because they only looked forward and never looked backward at what could destroy them. Before we explore the concept itself, let's begin with a real-world event that captures this problem with painful clarity. Today, we begin with a disaster that unfolded so quickly it felt like a financial lightning strike. On August 1, 2012, Knight Capital Group, a major Wall Street trading firm, lost $440 million in 45 minutes. Not from a market crash, not from a geopolitical shock, but from one dormant piece of code accidentally resurrected during a software update. A single server ran an outdated function that hadn't been used in years. That function began firing off faulty trades at machine speed. There was no kill switch, no automatic circuit breaker, no human override with the authority to shut it down. By the time someone realized what was happening, the machine had detonated tens of thousands of trades and blown up the entire firm. Knight Capital didn't fail because of a bad strategy. They failed because they didn't prepare for failure. They thought only forward toward profit, speed, and innovation. They never asked the inverted question, if this system fails instantly, what stops the damage? This incident reveals the mindset we're exploring today. And now that the stage is set, let's define the idea behind it. That's what this video is about. The mindset that could have saved them and countless others throughout history. It's called inversion, the discipline of thinking backward to prevent disaster before it happens. Inversion is not negativity. It's not pessimism. It's precision. Instead of only imagining how things go right, you map out how they go wrong. Charlie Munger spent decades, especially throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, teaching this method. "Tell me where I'm going to die so I'll never go there," he often said. Inversion forces clarity by asking what guaranteed failure looks like and how do I avoid it. Forward thinking asks what to do. Inversion asks what not to do. Forward thinking imagines success. Inversion exposes blind spots. Forward thinking is seductive. Inversion is uncomfortable, and because of that, it's far more valuable. Now that the concept is defined, let's explore one of the most useful ways it is applied in the real world. This takes us to one of the most important tools in inversion, the pre-mortem. Psychologist Gary Klein proposed it in 2007. Most organizations do postmortems after the damage is done. The pre-mortem flips time around. You gather your team and say, imagine it's 6 months from now and the project has failed badly. What caused it? Suddenly, people say things they would never say during a normal planning meeting. They reveal their fears. They point out risks. They highlight assumptions that everyone silently ignored. This method works because it breaks the planning fallacy, Kahneman and Tversky's 1979 discovery that humans chronically underestimate time, cost, complexity, and risk. We assume everything will go well because our brains want the emotional reward of believing in a clean, linear future. But disasters are nonlinear. Systems fail in irregular, surprising ways. And inversion prepares us for those surprises. So far, we've looked at how inversion applies to organizations, but its power extends far beyond corporate strategy. This is not limited to corporations. Inversion transforms personal life too. If your goal is to write a book this year, forward thinking imagines the finished manuscript. Inversion asks what predictable obstacles will stop you: distractions, procrastination, inconsistency, perfectionism. Psychologist Gabriele Oettingen's mental contrasting in the early 2000s showed that visualizing obstacles dramatically increases achievement. Peter Gallwitzer's implementation intentions from 1999 convert that into a simple rule. If the urge to check my phone arises at 9 a.m. during writing time, then I will put it in another room and immediately start typing. Small inverted rules often make the difference between success and abandonment. To understand why inversion feels unnatural and why most people never apply it, we need to examine what the human brain does by default. But human psychology actively works against inversion. We have the escalation of commitment, documented by Arcus and Bloomer in 1985, which makes us continue investing in failing situations because we can't emotionally accept the loss. We pour money into a losing business. We stay in a toxic job. We remain in a relationship that drains us. We continue because stopping feels like admitting defeat. Then there's the ostrich effect from 2009. We avoid negative information. We don't check the credit card bill. We don't ask uncomfortable questions. We don't examine early warning signs. Avoidance feels safer than truth. Next comes the illusion of explanatory depth from 2002, the belief that we understand things we don't. Ask most people to explain inflation, how a microwave works, or why interest rates affect housing prices. They feel confident until they try to explain. Their understanding collapses. Layer on top of that the need for cognitive closure from the 1990s, the craving for quick answers and definite conclusions. Ambiguity feels threatening, so we grab the first explanation that gives us emotional relief. And behind all of these is negative confirmation bias. We look for information that agrees with what we already believe and ignore everything else. Let's pause here and connect the dots before moving forward. So far, we've seen that inversion reveals blind spots, prevents preventable mistakes, and exposes assumptions we normally overlook, and now we're going to see how this plays out across different disciplines. To see inversion in action, let's look at some of the most instructive failures and discoveries of the last century. Moments when thinking backward would have prevented disaster, and moments when it revealed breakthroughs nobody else could see. Start with space exploration. In 1999, NASA lost the Mars Climate Orbiter, a $327 million spacecraft, because one engineering team used metric units and another used imperial units. A mismatch between newtons and pounds force sent the spacecraft into the Martian atmosphere at the wrong altitude, where it disintegrated instantly. But the real failure wasn't the unit conversion. It was the absence of inverted questions. No one asked, what small mistake could cause catastrophic navigational error? What sanity checks confirm that all units match? What trivial mismatch could destroy this mission? A single inverted review could have saved the mission. Another powerful scientific example comes from 2011, when the Opera experiment in Italy reported that neutrinos appeared to be traveling faster than light. If true, this would shatter Einstein's theory of relativity. But instead of declaring a revolution, the scientists used inversion. They asked, if this result is wrong, what tiny, dumb, embarrassing mistake could explain it? What assumption in our detection system could be false? What simple mechanical issue could distort our timing? They discovered the answer: a loose fiber optic cable. That small mechanical flaw created false results that looked groundbreaking. Inversion protected the scientific community from a global false alarm. Now travel back to 1967, when a graduate student named Jocelyn Bell Burnell detected strange, perfectly regular radio pulses while analyzing telescope data. Her colleagues told her it was probably interference. Their assumption was simple: unusual signals are usually equipment noise. But Bell inverted that assumption. She asked, if this signal is real, not noise, what would I expect to see? What patterns should appear elsewhere in the sky? What alternative explanations must I rule out? Her inverted thinking led to the discovery of pulsars, rapidly spinning neutron stars, and earned a place in astrophysical history. Then there is the domain of medicine, where thinking forward too confidently has deadly consequences. Throughout 1957 to 1961, the drug thalidomide was promoted to treat morning sickness. European regulators approved it quickly based on limited testing. The forward assumption was simple: if animals show no harm, humans will be fine. But Dr. Francis Oldham Kelsey, Reviewing the drug for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in 1960 and 1961 inverted the question. She refused to approve it. She asked what evidence was missing, not what evidence was present. She asked, if this drug harms unborn children, what early signals would I expect? Are these tests robust enough to detect danger in pregnant patients? Her refusal prevented thousands of birth defects in the United States. Public health provides another compelling inversion. In 1854, during a cholera epidemic in London, most physicians believed the disease spread through bad air. But John Snow inverted the assumption. He asked, if cholera spreads through water, where would cases cluster? He mapped the cases and identified a contaminated pump on Broad Street. Removing the pump handle became one of the earliest victories of modern epidemiology. Now consider how inversion works in corporate finance. In 2012, the same year as Knight Capital, JP Chase suffered the London whale loss of $6.2 billion. Official reports revealed that risk models were modified to make the portfolio appear safer than it really was. This is a textbook case of Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a meaningful measure. An inverted question like, if this metric is corrupted, what behaviors would I expect? How could traders manipulate it? Would have revealed the danger early. But the most dramatic example of inversion preventing catastrophe happened in 1983. Amid Cold War tension, Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov was on duty when an early warning satellite system reported incoming American missiles. Protocol demanded immediate escalation. Petrov paused. He inverted the situation. If the United States were launching a real first strike, what would I expect? His answer, far more missiles, not just a handful. He concluded the alarm was false, a malfunction triggered by sunlight reflecting off clouds. His inverted reasoning prevented a nuclear response. When you step back, the pattern becomes unmistakable. Space missions, scientific anomalies, medical decisions, financial systems, nuclear command structures. All of them crumble when people assume the forward path is safe. And all of them are strengthened when someone asks the inverted question, what if our assumption is wrong? At this point, we've seen inversion through corporate failure, scientific discovery, public health, and geopolitical stability. Now let's turn the lens inward. Inversion is the discipline of confronting danger before it emerges. It is a mindset that respects complexity instead of simplifying it into comforting illusions. It reduces fragility. It expands awareness. It transforms how you think. Because inversion isn't just a strategy used by NASA engineers or Cold War officers. It's one of the most powerful tools you can use to avoid self-inflicted damage and build a more resilient future. Most of the things that derail people are not dramatic. They're predictable. They're obvious in hindsight. They're the things we could have seen coming if we had asked just one inverted question earlier. Inversion helps you catch those dangers before they harden into patterns. Start with personal goals. Every year, millions of people set ambitions, start a business, improve their health, learn a skill, save money, write a book, rebuild a relationship. And every year, most of these goals evaporate long before the year is over. Forward thinking imagines the outcome. Inversion identifies the obstacles. Ask someone why they didn't achieve their goal, and they'll tell you a story about unexpected circumstances. But in reality, most obstacles are predictable. If you ask yourself, what will stop me from achieving this, you'll get a list that is almost always correct. The biggest killers of personal goals are distraction, consistency, fear of discomfort, lack of a clear process, overcommitting, and believing motivation will be enough. These aren't surprises. They're patterns. Psychologist Gabriele Oettingen's research on mental contrasting showed that visualizing the positive outcome alone actually reduces motivation. But visualizing the obstacles increases it dramatically. Your brain begins preparing for resistance instead of fantasizing about ease. And implementation intentions, discovered by Peter Gollwitzer in 1999, take inversion even further. You decide in advance how to respond when the obstacle appears. If I feel tired after work, then I will walk for just 5 minutes. If a meeting runs long, then I'll do my reading during lunch. If I crave junk food, then I will drink a glass of water first and wait 10 minutes. Inversion turns your goal into a set of fail-safes. You stop depending on motivation and start depending on structure. But goals are just the beginning. Inversion can save you from some of the most painful human traps, especially the ones powered by emotion. Think about the escalation of commitment again. We stay in bad jobs, bad relationships, bad investments, and bad friendships long after the evidence says leave. We stay because leaving feels like admitting we made a mistake. We stay because we're afraid to lose what we've already invested. We stay because we hope it will magically improve. Inversion flips the question. If I wanted to waste as much time, money, and emotional energy as possible from this point forward, what would I continue doing? That one question forces honesty. It exposes the pathway of regret. And often the inverted answer is simple: stop now. Inversion gives you permission to walk away earlier, to cut your losses instead of escalating them. It also helps in relationships. People often ask, how do I build a healthy relationship? A lack of communication, assuming you already understand your partner, not listening, not asking clarifying questions, not admitting fault, letting small resentments fester, avoiding uncomfortable conversations, expecting them to read your mind. If you simply avoid the obvious relationship killers, the relationship strengthens naturally. You don't need perfect communication. You just need to avoid the predictable disasters. The same is true of careers. People ask, how do I grow my career? Inversion asks, what derails a career? A reputation for unreliability, not responding to messages, not asking for clarity, taking things personally, avoiding feedback, being invisible, being difficult to work with. Avoid those, and you rise faster than most people who focus only on doing more work but ignore the landmines. The illusion of explanatory depth shows up everywhere in personal and professional life. We think we understand something until we're forced to explain it. Inversion asks, if my understanding is incomplete, where will it collapse first? What question would expose my ignorance? What assumption am I making without realizing it? Being able to answer those questions not only reveals your blind spots, it protects your reputation. Most people lose credibility not because they're wrong, but because they speak with confidence about things they don't truly understand. Inversion adds the humility that keeps you accurate. Then there's the ostrich effect, avoiding information you don't want to know. There are people who haven't checked their bank balance in months. People who avoid health checkups. People who avoid asking for feedback at work because they're afraid to hear the truth. Inversion asks, what am I avoiding looking at and why? Often that's exactly where you need clarity. Avoidance protects your ego. Inversion protects your life. Then there's the need for cognitive closure, the craving for a quick answer even when the situation is complex. We see this everywhere. People make impulsive decisions just to stop feeling uncertain. But uncertainty is where wisdom grows. Inversion slows you down. It asks, what information am I missing? What assumptions am I jumping past? What would change my mind? It forces you to sit with ambiguity long enough to find the truth. Negative confirmation bias also collapses under inversion. Normally, you search for evidence that proves your belief. Inversion forces you to search for the evidence that destroys your belief. If I'm wrong, what would that look like? If this plan is flawed, what is the first sign? If my confidence is misplaced, what symptoms will appear? This is second-order thinking in its purest form. You're not just thinking about the decision, you're examining the assumptions underneath the decision and the consequences that follow. And now we come to system blindness, the inability to see how complex systems fail. People assume that if nothing bad has happened yet, everything is fine. But systems often hide fragility behind long periods of apparent stability. Inversion asks, what early warning signs would appear if this system were breaking? What small irregularities would hint at deeper risk? What is happening beneath the surface that I haven't noticed? You start seeing patterns others ignore. You begin detecting the quiet signals that precede big problems. This mindset transforms your perception. Most people see events. You start seeing trajectories. Most people see outcomes. You start seeing mechanisms. With inversion, problems don't surprise you anymore. You see them forming long before they explode. Now let's take everything we've explored, the examples, the psychological barriers, the historical lessons, and convert them into a practical framework you can use anytime. Now let's turn inversion inward to the most difficult domain of all, the self. It's easy to analyze others. It's harder to analyze your own biases, your own blind spots, your own illusions. Most people believe they see reality clearly. This is one of the most powerful cognitive errors, naive realism. The belief that your perspective is objective and people who disagree are either uninformed, irrational, or biased. Inversion challenges this belief by asking, what if I'm the one who is misinterpreting this? What if my memory is inaccurate? What if my emotional state is distorting my judgment? What if my certainty is hiding my ignorance? These questions are uncomfortable because they force you to confront yourself, but they open the door to a deeper kind of clarity, a clarity most people will never develop because they never question themselves with real honesty. Inversion reveals how much of your thinking is shaped by assumptions you didn't choose, assumptions inherited from family, assumptions shaped by past trauma, society, by culture, by fear, by insecurity, by habit. Most suffering comes from acting on assumptions that were never examined. Inversion forces you to confront them, and once you see them, they lose their power. Inversion also improves emotional intelligence. When emotions rise, anger, anxiety, jealousy, frustration, your brain moves into a first-order mode. React now, think later. Inversion shifts you into second-order awareness. If I react the way I want to in this moment, what happens next? What is the second-order consequence of my anger? What damage will this cause? What is the regret I'm about to create? This kind of thinking saves marriages. It preserves friendships. It protects reputations. It guards your future from your momentary impulses. Inversion is not about suppressing emotion. It's about being aware of the downstream consequences of acting emotionally. It gives you control over your trajectory. Now let's bring all of this together into the JPIW inversion framework, a set of practical questions you can use in any situation. First, the failure blueprint. If this choice ends in disaster 5 years from now, what sequence of events led to it? This question reveals hidden risks and weak points before they show up. Second, the self-role challenge. If I am the one who is biased here, how would this situation look? This exposes blind spots you can't see from your normal perspective. Third, the signal test. If this warning, threat, or opportunity were real, what other signals should I expect to see? This prevents you from making decisions based on incomplete or misleading information. Fourth, the metric trap test. If this metric becomes corrupted, how could people game it? This protects you from Goodhart's law. Fifth, the kill switch question. If this decision goes wrong in the next 45 minutes, what is my immediate non-negotiable action to stop the bleeding? This protects you from sunk cost thinking and escalation. Sixth, the inconvenient data check. What uncomfortable information am I avoiding? This attacks the ostrich effect. Seventh, the depth check. What part of my understanding collapses first if someone asks me to explain it? This exposes the illusion of explanatory depth. Eighth, the clarity delay. What information might I learn tomorrow that would change my decision today? This reduces the need for cognitive closure. Ninth, the emotional aftermath projection. If I react impulsively right now, how will I feel about it in 12 hours? This prevents emotional decisions that cause long-term regret. These 9 inverted questions can transform how you think, how you decide, and how you navigate complexity. They shift you from a reactive mindset to a protective mindset. They move you from wishful thinking to practical wisdom. They help you avoid the avoidable. They help you see what others ignore. And they help you build a future that is stronger, clearer, and more resilient. In a world obsessed with speed, inversion forces you to slow down. In a world obsessed with optimism, inversion forces you to be honest. In a world obsessed with winning, inversion forces you to avoid losing. Most people chase big opportunities. Wise people eliminate big risks. Most people look forward and hope. Wise people look backward and prepare. Wisdom is knowing what to avoid before you know what to pursue. By thinking backward, you build a life that can withstand uncertainty. You prepare for the unexpected. You avoid the costly mistakes that derail dreams. And you gain something rare, clarity in a confusing world. Thank you for seeking practical intelligence. If this deep dive helped you think more clearly and act more wisely, share it forward. Like the video, subscribe, and pass it to someone who would benefit from it. And take a moment to reflect. What's one area of your life where you're now going to think backward before moving forward? Leave your answer in the comments. Someone else may learn from it. Your journey toward practical wisdom begins with clarity, and I'm honored to walk that path with you. Together, we're building a world where wisdom is practical, accessible, and deeply human. Thank you for watching, and as always, think deeply, live wisely. See you next week.